Listen and practice. Leo harbored a quiet ambition to speak English fluently, effortlessly. Yet, a formidable barrier stood in his path, an invisible wall of apprehension. Every time he considered uttering a simple phrase, the same dread echoed through his mind. He knew grammar rules, possessed a decent vocabulary, but conversation felt like an insurmountable peak. The silent question plagued him. I don't want make mistake, but I always why. This internal monologue paralyzing his attempts. He imagined judgmental stares, silent corrections, and the crushing weight of embarrassment. His confidence, fragile to begin with, shattered at the mere thought of vocalizing a single word imperfectly. This cycle consumed him. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Leo remained a silent English learner. He devoured textbooks, practiced conjugations, but the spoken word remained a distant, intimidating goal. Opportunities to engage with English speakers slipped by, leaving him with a familiar ache of regret. He yearned for connection, for expression, in English. One afternoon, while scrolling through job listings, a particular opening caught his eye. It was his dream role, a perfect fit for his skills, except for one critical requirement: impeccable English communication. This wasn't merely a preference, it was a prerequisite. A jolt of determination, mingled with fear, surged through his veins. This was his moment of truth. He couldn't let fear dictate his future any longer. He closed his laptop, taking a deep breath. Enough, he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. He decided right then that he would conquer his fear, that he would find the best way to learn English and commit to it fully. His initial search for the best way to learn English yielded a bewildering avalanche of advice. Courses, apps, tutors, immersion programs, the options seemed endless and overwhelming. He felt lost amidst the conflicting methodologies, unsure where to even begin this daunting, yet crucial, journey towards fluency and confidence. Then, a simple, almost radical suggestion appeared: start talking at home. The simplicity struck him. No expensive tutors, no public embarrassment, just him and his four walls. It felt absurd initially, talking to himself, articulating thoughts that normally remained unspoken, but a tiny spark of hope ignited within him. He designated his bedroom his personal English laboratory. Every morning, he'd wake up and narrate his routine aloud. I am getting out of bed now. I am brushing my teeth. His voice felt foreign, clumsy, but he persisted. This private practice session became his safe haven, where mistakes were merely echoes. He started describing objects around him, narrating his actions, even holding imaginary conversations. The initial self-consciousness gradually faded, replaced by a growing sense of liberation. This quiet, consistent, start talking at home approach laid a foundational comfort with the sound of his own voice speaking English words. This intimate beginning proved surprisingly effective. It removed the pressure of an audience, allowing him to experiment with sounds and structures without judgment. He recognized that fluency wasn't about perfection, but about overcoming the initial paralysis. He was truly beginning his speaking journey, one quiet word at a time. Next, he pondered why reading is important. He remembered teachers always emphasizing reading for vocabulary and comprehension. He decided to integrate it systematically into his daily routine. The goal was modest yet consistent: talk in English just 1 page per day. He started his reading adventure. He began with simple English articles, children's stories even. The key was consistency, not complexity. He focused on understanding the general meaning, picking up new vocabulary in context rather than memorizing lists. Each page represented a small victory, a brick added to his linguistic foundation. As days turned into weeks, the single page often turned into 2 or 3. He discovered fascinating articles, engaging short stories. Reading wasn't just a chore, it became an enjoyable discovery process. His passive vocabulary expanded significantly, providing him with a wider range of words to potentially use. Reading also improved his understanding of sentence structure and grammar naturally, without tedious memorization. He started noticing how native speakers phrased ideas, how words connected seamlessly. The rhythm and flow of English prose began to feel more intuitive. This daily ritual fortified his silent understanding of the language. This consistent reading practice also subconsciously prepared his brain for speaking. The more he read, the more he absorbed natural phrasing. It wasn't about talking, yet it built the linguistic resources necessary for future conversations. He understood why reading is important now, on a much deeper level. Then came the realization of why you must listen. Leo knew that understanding spoken English was crucial for real-life interactions. He began listening to English podcasts during his commute and English news channels while making dinner. He immersed himself in the sounds of the language. At first, much of it was a blur, a rapid stream of unfamiliar sounds. But he persisted. He started with content aimed at learners, then gradually moved to native-level materials. He focused on intonation, stress patterns, and the subtle nuances of spoken English. His ears slowly attuned themselves. He even explored resources like Let's Talk in British English, fascinated by the different accents and pronunciations. This broadened his auditory comprehension, making him less reliant on a single accent. He realized that exposure to various forms of English was incredibly beneficial for overall understanding. Listening transformed his passive knowledge into active recognition. He began to pick out words he had only previously read. This connection between written and spoken forms reinforced his learning. He understood that listening wasn't just about comprehension, it was about internalizing the music of the language. The combination of listen and practice, through active listening and his quiet home-based speaking, created a powerful synergy. He was hearing how words sounded and then trying to reproduce them himself. This holistic approach was slowly but surely building his practical English skills from the ground up. Leo recognized that there wasn't a single, best way to learn English. Instead, it was a tapestry woven from various threads: speaking at home, daily reading, active listening. His way of learning English was unique to him, an evolving blend of consistent, manageable practices. This realization brought clarity. He scheduled his learning, making it a non-negotiable part of his day. 15 minutes of talking at home, 20 minutes of reading 1 page, 30 minutes of listening. Consistency became his mantra. He wasn't aiming for overnight fluency, but steady, incremental improvement every single day. The journey wasn't without its frustrations. Some days, words wouldn't come. Other days, He felt like he was making no progress at all. The old doubt, "I don't want make mistake but I always why," still lingered, a quiet whisper in the background, threatening to derail his efforts. But he had learned to acknowledge the doubt without succumbing to it. He reminded himself that mistakes were inevitable, a natural part of any learning process. They weren't failures, but signposts indicating where he needed to focus more attention. This mindset shift was profoundly liberating. He started celebrating small victories, understanding a difficult podcast segment, forming a complete sentence without excessive hesitation, reading an entire article effortlessly. These little wins fueled his motivation, proving that his way of learning English was indeed yielding tangible, positive results. The time came when Leo realized his home practice was no longer enough. He needed how to speak with people. The thought still terrified him, but he knew real progress demanded real interaction. He began looking for opportunities to apply his diligently acquired skills in a live setting. He found an online language exchange community. The idea of speaking with strangers filled him with a familiar sense of dread. His heart pounded as he scheduled his first video call. This was the ultimate test, the moment he would confront his biggest fear head-on. The first call was, predictably, awkward. He fumbled for words, paused frequently, and felt his face flush with embarrassment. The other person was patient, but Leo felt like he was failing miserably. "I don't want make mistake but I always why," screamed in his mind. He hung up feeling dejected. But then, a quiet resolve settled in. He had faced his fear, and while it wasn't perfect, he hadn't completely fallen apart. He had actually spoken English to another human being. It was a shaky start, but it was a start nonetheless. He scheduled another call, and another. Each conversation chipped away at his anxiety. He started noticing patterns in his mistakes, which words he frequently misused, where his pronunciation faltered. He was truly listen and practice in action, learning from every interaction. He actively sought feedback, asking his conversation partners to correct his errors gently. This vulnerability was terrifying but incredibly effective. He was no longer hiding from mistakes, he was actively inviting them as teachers. This transformed his perception of learning dramatically. One memorable conversation involved discussing his hobbies. He found himself articulating complex thoughts, even cracking a joke in English. The words flowed more naturally, with less conscious effort. It was a small, exhilarating moment of true connection, a glimpse of fluency he had yearned for. This breakthrough boosted his confidence immensely. He realized that the key to how to speak with people wasn't perfection, but persistence and genuine communication. Even with imperfections, he was understood, and that was a monumental achievement in itself. His daily routine intensified. He continued to start talking at home as a warm-up. He ensured he did talk in English just 1 page per day, absorbing new structures. And listening remained paramount, fine-tuning his ear to the subtleties of spoken language. The job interview, the one that sparked this entire journey, finally arrived. Leo felt a nervous flutter, but it was different now. It was anticipation, not paralyzing dread. He had prepared, he had practiced, and he trusted the process, his unique way of learning English. He walked into the interview room, took a deep breath, and greeted the interviewers confidently. His voice was steady, his answers clear, even when he had to pause briefly to formulate a thought. He wasn't aiming for flawless, he was aiming for effective communication. He found himself comfortably discussing his experience, explaining his ideas, and even asking thoughtful questions in English. There were still moments of hesitation, an occasional misplaced article, but they didn't derail him. He simply corrected himself and moved on, unperturbed. The fear of, "I don't want make mistake but I always why," had transformed. It was no longer a barrier, but a reminder that he was learning, evolving. Each stumble was a stepping stone, not a pitfall. His mindset had profoundly shifted from avoidance to embrace. He had successfully applied the best way to learn English, for him, a combination of self-practice, consistent input, and brave interaction. It wasn't about a magic formula, but about dedicated effort and a willingness to step outside his comfort zone repeatedly. A few days later, the phone rang. It was the job offer. Leo's heart swelled with pride and disbelief. He had done it. He had not only learned English but had conquered his deepest fear, opening doors he once thought were forever sealed shut. His success wasn't an endpoint, but a new beginning. He continued to refine his English, knowing that language learning was a lifelong journey. The foundational habits he built were now ingrained, a natural part of his daily routine. He often reflected on the initial paralysis. The simple act of deciding to start talking at home had been revolutionary. It taught him that the biggest hurdles are often internal, and the solution begins with tiny, consistent steps, taken in a safe environment. He became an advocate for others struggling with English, sharing his story, emphasizing that, why reading is important, goes beyond vocabulary, building a holistic understanding. He encouraged them to pick up just one page per day. He stressed why you must listen, explaining how auditory immersion tunes the ear and brain to the language's natural rhythm. He highlighted the benefit of diverse listening, even suggesting, "Let's talk in British English" resources. His advice always came back to action: listen and practice. Don't just consume, actively engage. Reproduce sounds, mimic intonation. He knew this active participation was crucial for converting passive knowledge into practical fluency. He explained that the best way to learn English is highly personal. There isn't one universal answer. It's about finding what resonates with you, what you can consistently maintain, and what pushes you gently out of your comfort zone. For him, it was a methodical blend. He emphasized that the way of learning English is less about speed and more about sustained effort. Each small step accumulates into significant progress over time. He never sugar-coated the struggle, particularly the battle with self-doubt. He openly admitted, "I don't want make mistake but I always why," acknowledging that fear is natural, but overcoming it is essential for growth. His journey proved that true progress comes from embracing imperfections, not avoiding them. Mistakes are not failures but indispensable feedback loops. They show you where to improve, where to fine-tune your understanding and pronunciation. Leo now confidently navigates conversations, able to how to speak with people effectively in various settings. His English wasn't perfect, but it was functional, fluent, and most importantly, it was his voice, finally unleashed. he understood that the journey was ongoing. He continued his daily page of reading, his regular listening, and his internal monologues. English had become a living, breathing part of his life, continuously evolving. He also made it a point to connect with other learners, sharing his experiences and offering encouragement. He became a beacon of hope for those who felt stuck, just as he once had. His core message remained simple: start small, be consistent, and embrace mistakes. The initial fear of, "I don't want make mistake but I always why," can be transformed into a powerful motivator for continuous improvement. His story was a testament to the power of dedicated practice, especially starting in your own safe space. "Start talking at home" was not just a phrase, it was the genesis of his remarkable linguistic transformation and confidence. Leo's journey proved that anyone, regardless of their starting point or inherent shyness, can achieve fluency. It required commitment, self-compassion, and the courage to take that first terrifying, yet liberating, step into speaking. He smiled, recalling the exact moment he decided to commit. It felt like a lifetime ago. Now, he was not just speaking English, he was living it, connecting with the world in ways he once only dreamed possible, truly mastering his voice.